Welcome to me forcing my favorite songs down your throat. This is a series that I'm going to be calling and the goal is to give you some unique and interesting music recommendations that you may not have heard of or have forgotten. How it's going to work is I'm going to pull up my music library and hit shuffle on all of the songs within until I find 10 songs I want to talk about. And for fun, we're going to rank them at the end from worst to best. Now, I'm not going to just pick the first 10 songs for a couple of reasons. Some of the songs in my library I've completely forgotten and maybe just listened to one time, so I don't feel like I have the authority to listen to them. And other songs I've just straight up not listened to at all. I have a tendency to download full albums as a reminder to myself to listen to them, so I obviously can't talk about those in depth, so I'm just gonna skip them. This is just gonna be an opportunity for me to talk about some songs that I may have forgotten and wouldn't typically bring up in a YouTube setting. And hopefully you will find one or two more songs that you like, or maybe even a full-blown artist. Do the intro. Why, hello! I'm Jack Brunót and I talk all things art and entertainment, not just music. But today, shuffle play. I have a really big music library. I've had it going on since I was a kid, even before Apple Music was a thing. Yes, I use Apple Music. Take me to jail. If you end up liking what you see here, subscribing goes a long way for me, but make sure to say hello in the comments. I post 2 YouTube videos a month and more content on my other social medias, which are linked in the description. But without further ado, shuffle play. I should make like a shuffle play theme song. Okay, the literal first song that I got when I clicked shuffle is one that I'd like to talk about, which is I Got It by Kenny Mason.
So my plug, I got plans. Take a chance,
Kenny Mason is an up-and-coming artist in the rap scene, fusing southern hip-hop and trap with punk rock, but not in a cringy way. He's had some prominent features recently with Denzel Curry and Jid, but for some reason he is not getting the same amount of clout as those two, and he needs to. I honestly won't compare him to any other artist, but I do think he kind of does fit into like a post-cloud rap kind of scene. While a lot of his songs are very aggressive, leaning towards punk music, my favorite tracks from him, the more common tracks in his discography, are his more laid-back but tight, airy, melodic stuff. I Got It is a fantastic example from that from his mixtape 6. This is definitely not the Kenny Mason song that I would have brought up in a conversation of like his best work. I prefer more popular tracks from his albums like Dip or Mama Don't Know. His music, such as this song, follows very common themes in hip-hop like resilience and self-reliance, and a little bit of flex in here and there never hurt anyone. It's a banger for sure. I would suggest checking out his album Roughs, but the mixtape 6 is also a perfectly okay spot to start to. Oh goodness, all right. Okay, I promise this entire video won't be hip-hop. I don't just listen to hip-hop, but the next song is Stargazing by Travis Scott. Rolling, got me stargazing. This is not necessarily a deep cut from Travis or music in general. I think most of us are aware of Travis Scott, and many are even aware of this song. It's probably one of his more popular songs. It also so happens to be my favorite song from him. It is the intro track on his 2018 album Astroworld. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and necessarily recommend Travis Scott to people. I am a really big fan of his music, but the guy has done some questionable things, but I will say that personally, in my opinion, Travis is probably one of the better vibe setters in the hip-hop industry nowadays. He has shown the test of time and also continues to evolve his sound. If I were to recommend a project to you, I would go with Astroworld, the first track of which would be Stargazing. Stargazing is the perfect title for this track. It encapsulates the entire theme of the album, which is space. In more recent years, Travis Scott has adapted his spacey, reverb-infested auto-tune rap. Travis isn't just a talented rapper. He has also been a producer for many hits across the music industry. Artists like Jay-Z, John Lennon, Another famous rapper that I am not going to talk about on this channel, but you all know who I'm talking about. But also Drake, Rihanna, and even, believe it or not, Madonna. The list goes on, and it truly shows that Travis Scott's skills mainly lie in his production, which I could not agree with more when it comes to his own music. If you are on the fence of Travis Scott's music because of who he is as a person, that is understandable, and I would just suggest not getting into him. But if you are on the fence just based on his music, I think Stargazing is a good spot to start. So cold in the rain.
I wanna go where the sun is shining and no one.
I promised I wouldn't just talk about hip hop. The next song is Still Run from Wet, which fortunately happens to be my favorite song from them as well. You see, this is why I'm making this video, because I would have never talked about Wet. I'm not the biggest fan of the band, but they do have some individual tracks here and there that I love. Still Run is the intro track and title track of their 2019 record. This album marked a stylistic evolution for the band, experimenting with more acoustic instrumentation as opposed to their previous records, which were better categorized as indie pop. The bass concept of the song Still Run is a fairly common one, love. However, it takes it a step further, contemplating on the internal conflict between staying in a relationship you are not happy in and the desire for independence. Exploring the idea of choosing to leave even though it is hard. And also, I mean, it sounds so good. Ain't shining and no one knows my name. YouTube don't copyright claim that. I'm allowed to do covers here. Back to hip hop with Perfecto by Mac Miller.
Well, it ain't perfect, but I don't mind because it's worth it.
I just realized that a lot of the songs that have come up on this all came out in 2018. I don't know what's going on there. Perfecto is probably one of the more popular tracks from Mac Miller's 2018 record Swimming, an album that on first listen for me, I was really not the biggest fan of until later on Circles clicked with me and I went back to give it a second chance, and now happens to be my favorite Mac Miller record. I would then go on to become a huge Mac Miller fan. He's one of my favorite artists. Frankly, I think he is up there with Kendrick Lamar as a rapper. He just wasn't given enough time to really break out into the true mainstream. May he rest in peace. Now, I do want to preface that this is one of my least favorite tracks from the record, but that doesn't mean I hate it. I think this album is fairly close to perfect. Now, for those unaware, Mac Miller is far from a regular rapper. In fact, in his later years, he more or less started to become a blues artist, walking the fine line between rap and blues. Yeah. Mac Miller initially got traction for being known as a college rapper, and regardless of what anyone says, including the fans, I think his earlier stuff didn't exactly age well. Some of his earlier tracks still hit though, like The Spins, but I think he really started to come into himself about halfway through his career when he got more aggressive with his rap, then eventually becoming softer once putting out his album The Divine Feminine. Believe it or not, I actually wrote a paper back in school. Each page of the paper was dedicated to one song. I don't know if I still have it. I'll try to go find it, see if I could find some like screenshots or something. The writing probably wasn't great though. That was before I really came into my own as a writer. Perfecto is about the struggle with the pursuit of perfection, especially as a celebrity who has eyes on them at all times. Mac Miller, especially in his late discography, has a plethora of songs dissecting what it means to be a human being, and Perfecto is a perfecto example of it. You know, I wanted to make this video so I could talk about some deep cuts, some songs that I wouldn't typically talk about, songs that you may not have heard of, and that goal is not going well because the next song is We Suck Young Blood by Radiohead.
Are you hungry?
Definitely not one of their highlighted songs. However, Radiohead is a pretty prolific band in the music industry. I have been a long-time Radiohead fan, but I do want to mention they have been going through some controversies lately. So this entire video, if I'm talking about artists that end up doing something bad in the future, or maybe they did something bad in the past, I don't want to be associated with that. I strongly believe that we should not praise celebrities. To be fair, we are all imperfect people, but I think as individuals and as music listeners, we can decide where we draw the line. And my opinion has definitely changed of Radiohead. I'm not going to talk about what they did. You could do your own research, but they are very talented musicians. This is from their 2023 record, Hail to the Thief, which is probably one of my least favorite records from them, but they have a pretty polished discography, so that doesn't really say anything to me. This song is pretty typical Radiohead with its minimalistic arrangement and haunting atmosphere. I know a lot of people say that Radiohead's music just kind of sounds like a guy whining for long periods of time over spooky piano. And while that may kind of be true, when it hits, it hits. We Suck Youngblood is a criticism of Hollywood's obsession with youth and the exploitation of such. Very prevalent across not just the music industry, but the entertainment industry as a whole. If you want to get into Radiohead, I would not start here. I would go with either their album OK Computer in Rainbows or Kid A, or just listen to their debut hit Creep. More hip hop. This next song is FBI by Token. If you are a fan of fast rap, you definitely know this guy, but I wouldn't just categorize Token as a lyrical miracle rapper. In fact, in recent years, he's been experimenting with his sound, taking inspiration from artists like Playboi Carti, while keeping their typical rap roots. I wouldn't consider myself a huge fan of him now. I used to be really into the lyrical miracle rap when I was a kid, but eventually I just grew out of it for various reasons. But there are some fast rappers who still are making pretty quality music. Jid, for example, who featured on Token's track Boom. Token himself has also been fairly critical of his fellow lyrical miracle rappers, specifically how many of those rappers are very critical of the less lyrical. So the song FBI specifically is from my favorite Token record from 2018, again, Somewhere Between. The title of this album is actually kind of interesting because it really is kind of the middle of the divide between his two sounds, the lyrical miracle of his older music as opposed to his more experimental, less lyrical stuff. FBI is a solid track, but I do think it is one of the more basic tracks from that album. If you're not a fan of lyrical miracle rap, I would still recommend this record. I think the emotions that Somewhere Between is able to evoke in the listener is very compelling. I have rarely ever felt the emotions that I feel when listening to this record. The only other record that I can think of that gave me the same feeling is Softer by Mooney. Both records are written from the perspective of someone who is losing their grip on reality because of the trauma that they have been facing in their daily lives. At least that's the perspective that I got from them. I'm not saying Token is a bad person. I don't know the guy. However, a lot of the songs on this album kind of feel like he thinks he's the bad person and all of his decisions are surrounding the fact that he feels this way. There's a lot of glorification of this, but every so often there's a crack in the foundation that you can peek between to see the emotional truth. FBI is not exactly one of those songs. It's definitely one of the more braggadocious tracks on the record, while simultaneously still sticking to the concept of the album, the struggle of maintaining his everyday life while gaining a rapid amount of fame. I swear I don't just listen to rap. The next song is Birds by Tia Koren.
I feel like birds in the sky when you fly to me. I wanna
From my favorite record from her, 2022's I Can't Wait. Tia is a rapper who seems to have had her 15 minutes of fame, which is a shame because she makes such fun cloud rap. This is a genre that I hold pretty close to my heart, mainly because of when I got into hip hop, it was all the rage. Some of the biggest hitters in the genre being A$AP Rocky and Lil B. While a lot of her songs are comedic, she has shown time and time again that she is a quite impressive rapper, specifically from her XXL freestyles. The way she's able to weave in and out of the pocket is just so groovy. If you like rap, you need to go give her some more love. I need this girl on the top of the charts. I don't have much to say about the track Birds specifically. I do think it's one of the weaker songs from I Can't Wait. Birds is very reliant on auto-tune, which is not necessarily a bad thing, and I do still quite enjoy this song. But if you want to get into her, I would recommend her track Shaka Khan, or maybe Boogie instead. Another controversial artist. Yippee. We have the title track from Lana Del Rey's first 2021 record, Chemtrails, Over the Country Club.
wear in our shoes in the swimming pool.
They're gonna rust. I adore this entire record. As a follow-up from what I think is her best record from 2019, Norman effing Rockwell, this more or less just feels like a B-side of that album, which is not a criticism because I love it. I love it so much. Give me more. Something about Lana Del Rey's voice just caresses me. Many have tried to copy her sound, but none have truly captured the same charm as a Lana Del Rey song. I think she has really come into herself as an artist. I didn't get into her until her 2019 album. I have since gone back to check out out those early records, and I like some of the songs, but I think she's become much more talented. Chemtrails Over the Country Club, the track, much like the full album, can be categorized as dream pop or dream folk, incorporating modern Americana themes and some jazz instrumentation. The track covers many topics that all tie into one another, some of which include escapism, privilege, and existential dread. Something we all need, something most of us don't have, and then something most of us do have. The track was produced by Jack Antonoff, the guy who produces basically every song ever at this point. He also happened to co-write it as well. You thought I was done with hip-hop? Never. However, this next artist is far from the other rappers. This song is Note to the Misses by Milo. However, that was his old artist name. He now goes by Rap Ferreira.
I will meet you again to skip flat stones across that moon lake.
I had a phase of getting into very weird and experimental rap, and still from time to time I go back to this record. Not sure if I like it or if it's just the nostalgia talking, but regardless, it is a fascinating listen. That if you are a rap fan and you're getting sick of your typical artists and sounds, maybe go give this a listen, because I guarantee you probably have not heard many artists like him. To compare him to more popular artists that are still not super popular, A$AP Rock, Homeboy Sandman, and Open Mike Eagle. Rap Ferreira is known for his philosophical themes with abstract lyricism and jazz-infused instrumentals. His music almost feels like poetry while still somehow barely clinging on to the rap label. Note to the Misses sticks to the overall themes of the 2017 record Who Told You to Think? A look into how our society breaks down creatives and forces them to get in line. This record specifically talking about it within the music industry and rap genre as a whole. This is a fairly shorter, almost interlude-esque track from the record. Definitely not a good starting point. It's definitely a fascinating listen through and through, and I would just suggest anyone to go give the entire record a try. My suggestion, starting with the song Poet Black Bean, which is the first track. Our final track that we are talking about in this video is Amity by Elliott Smith. The king of folk music, an artist that has been coined by pretty much every single folk and singer-songwriter artist as being a major inspiration to them. I have just recently been getting into their music, and boy, has it been a fantastic journey as someone who is such a fan of the folk genre. From arguably his biggest record from 1998, XO, even though my favorite is probably the record that superseded it, Either Or. Unlike many of the tracks on the record, Amity is a much louder and brash song. A surprising and thrilling direction to rock-oriented instrumentation as opposed to his slower, more somber singer-songwriter music. Elliott Smith's music is known for delving into mental health issues, specifically depression, addiction, and other forms of personal turmoil. Putting it that way, though, is honestly just scratching the surface and dumbing it down. He wrote some of the saddest music that I have ever listened to, which unfortunately does make sense in the context of his tragic passing. But at least we can know that his music career meant something to so many people. If you are a fan of Phoebe Bridgers or Bon Iver, it is clear that both of those artists and many of their other colleagues took heavy inspiration from Elliott Smith. Even though he is not a household name like the commonly referred to King of Pop, Michael Jackson, or the commonly referred to King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley, he had the guts to try something different. The inspiration on the music industry made it worth it. While he has never spoken about the meaning of his track Amity, fans have concurred that the song is about the struggle to act normal in society when facing internal battles. Smith writing about the disparity between him and a person he knew with an upbeat personality, looking at the contrast between the two. Okay, so now we gotta rank them. I don't have any footage of me doing this because this is editing me. I quite literally just came up with a better concept for this video where I rank all of the songs at the end. So I'm just gonna do a really quick ranking. In future videos, I'll be a little bit more thorough at the end, but if you want to understand my reasoning, I mean, you could just rewatch the video. I wouldn't mind getting 2 views per person, so spin it back if you don't mind. Okay, at the bottom, at number 10, I am putting Birds by Tia Koren. I do enjoy enjoy this song. I didn't hate any of the songs that I talked about in this video. I can't promise that for future videos though. But Birds is just one of the weaker tracks I've heard from her. Next at number 9, I'm putting Note to Misses by Milo. Kind of a similar situation. This is more or less an interlude from the record. Definitely one of my least favorites from it, but it's still very potent with its delivery and lyricism. Next on number 8, I'm putting FBI by Token, mainly because it's one of the more basic tracks from that album. Then at number 7, I am putting Perfecto by Mac Miller, once again only because it's probably my least favorite song from Swimming. At number 6, I'm putting Amity by Elliott Smith. Despite him being one of my favorite artists, this is also one of my least favorite tracks, at least off of XO. Then cracking the top 5, at number 5, I am putting I Got It by Kenny Mason. This track is pretty on par with the majority of his work. I'm okay with recommending this one as a first listen for you. Then at number 4, I'm going with We Suck Youngblood by Radiohead. While it is off of one of my least favorite records from them, they are, however, one of my favorite bands. So, something I didn't mention earlier is this track is so haunting, it almost feels like a vampiric song. Not in the Playboy Cardi way, in the medieval fantasy kind of way. Anyway, at number 3, I'm going with Chemtrails Over the Country Club by Lana Del Rey. I am a sucker for everything she puts out at this point. At number 2, I am putting Still Run by Wet. Such a beautiful track. And honestly, to my surprise here, I am putting number 1 as Stargazing by Travis Scott. It is definitely not the most impressive or technical song from this list. However, it is such a solid psychedelic hip-hop record. So yep, that's the ranking. Let me know in the comments how you would rework it. It's okay for all of us to have different opinions. If we had the same opinion, that would be kind of odd, but I'd appreciate it nonetheless. So that is it. That is the first ever episode of Shuffle and Tell. Tell me what your favorite songs are from the artists that we talked about in this video, and let me know if you want to see another episode of the series. If you're still around, thank you so much for watching the video in its entirety. As I said before, I post 2 videos a month, so if you liked this one, you might like some of the others. But before you check those out, I have something I need to tell you. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do with your life. Stay safe out there. Abu bye.